The dead come back, but with secret strings attached. Stacks of reports echo a strange cloud of appearances. Siblings journey into the past to face the present, with something looking over their shoulder. Welcome to Hidden Oaks. Walter had come back to life. Just like the flip of some otherworldly switch, he was there in the room with her that morning trying to sleep like he did just a year ago. It was as if nothing had been changed by his death, by his body on the bed, by the bugs and the fluids. Whatever soul, spirit, or ghost was powering his supernatural forge was ablaze again and burning to live like he did before. However, his body, which had been decomposing for a year, was not as fortunate. After Walter had mumbled those words that morning, his tongue had abruptly fallen out of his mouth. It looked like the black tail of a lizard. It bounced off the bedding and onto the carpet in an unceremonious flop. He tried to scream about it, but he coughed out dust. It took Marjorie a few moments for her mind to even accept the resurrected corpse. She stayed glued to the shelf, thinking of the various trinkets around her she could throw at him, if required. What are you doing here, Walter? I thought you were dead. This is... Walter fell out of the bed as he tried to stand. Unusual, Marjorie said. Her eyes focused on the bed growing more visible with the early morning light. It was covered in dark stains of human wetness. There were other bits of ghastly material which shed off Walter's underworld skin and onto the comforter in brackish bits. My God, Walt, look at the mess you're leaving everywhere, Marjorie said, pointing at the bed. Walter tried to stand up so she could come and hug him. He thought she would be happy to have him alive again and with her after a small reprieve. So far, her reaction was less than enthusiastic. As he wobbled upright, his left foot broke off at the ankle, which sent him tumbling into the nightstand with a crash and a groan. Jesus Christ, Walter! What are you doing falling into things like that? Look at all the stuff you're breaking. Walter pulled himself up with the edge of the comforter and looked at his wife. She was shielding herself with her hands so she didn't have to look at him. She looked fleshy, healthy, like she hadn't gone to hell and back on some sort of deranged sabbatical. Watching her breathe, seeing her body tremble with panic made him jealous of her skin and ashamed of his own reanimated shell. Hummy, he mumbled. His tongue was still on the floor. His broken foot gave an extra bend to his skeleton. He hobbled towards her but could barely move without fear of falling apart. The dark energy that had summoned him upwards back to this treasured living world couldn't deter the effects of time, which had ravaged his body into a jelly-like gargoyle of decomposition. Why wasn't she happy to see him? Even like this, why wasn't she happy that her husband had just been resurrected? Ugh, stay away from me, Walt. You should just look at yourself and the mess. The untidiness you're making is horrifying. Just go outside, Marjorie said. Walt was wearing his pajamas, but the rest of his body looked like it was about to fall right off his bones. Bits of bony pearl snuck out between jelly-like layers of black and blue tissue, which dangled off his limbs like torn curtains in an abandoned house. He had shrunk down, no longer able to stand tall at his usual 6'2", and his shoulders had migrated right behind his clean skull, like his neck hadn't come back from hell with him. Walt's face was what shamed him the most. He was so decayed there, he was just a white visage, empty of any real flesh or detail, as if he should be a prop in an anatomy teacher's classroom. He held his arms out to embrace Marjorie, but he moved too fast. His elbows started to bend and broke, like overburdened branches, causing him to fall again and groan in frustration. Get out! Get out of here! Did you come back deaf? Look at what you've done, Walt! I'm going to waste my whole day cleaning this room!" Walt didn't expect such casual indifference to his revivification. He slowly stood up and swayed back and forth as he walked past Marjorie toward the bedroom door. Birds were singing in the early morning. The sunlight was sneaking in through the windows. It was going to be a beautiful day. Walt doubted that his wife had kept up with the lawn since his departure. Maybe she would appreciate him doing this instead of casting him out over his unintentional decay. Marjorie left the room in a flurry. She needed to change her clothes, get the bleach, wash the sheets, scrub the carpet, wipe the nightstand. She needed to make him disappear. She didn't want him back, especially not as some undead thing. She didn't even focus on that issue. She couldn't. She had been so happy without him. Now this unnatural event had ruined her rituals and tranquility. Even revived, Walt was ruining her life. As she walked into the hallway, she tripped on something across the doorway. It felt like there was some sort of string or cord. It hit her ankle hard. She fell into the wall to balance herself. She looked back, expecting to find some sort of piece of tissue or bone from Walt, or maybe some broken pictures and debris from when she had fallen into the shelf, but there was nothing. An empty spot of air stared back at her, like it was almost insulted she was looking at it. What was that? She asked herself. She spent the morning cleaning. She didn't want to talk to Walt, look at him, or even acknowledge that he had risen from the dead. She didn't want him back. It had been peaceful in her life since he departed. He didn't need to come back. Nobody missed him. Marjorie prodded her consciousness for moments she might have irritated the supernatural world, which in turn had punished her with this obscene act of darkness. She couldn't think of anything. She was just that unlucky, she concluded, to have Walt back in her life. Before she powered up the vacuum to suck up the bits of dead material and fill the house with a dull, suctioned roar and dusty smell, she heard the downstairs door open to the garage and backyard. Maybe the sun will burn him up or send him back or something, she laughed. Walt clearly wasn't supposed to be alive, much less move around. His body echoed this undead truth. The walk out to the garage had been long and laborious. He tripped and staggered over bits of carpet, steps, and throw rugs. Occasionally he couldn't move at all, as if he was snagged on nothing in particular. He felt like a fish both out of water and caught on some hookless line. He pushed and thrashed against this feeling as best as his skeletal body would allow him, and eventually he'd stumble free. Somewhere, in the dull din of the vacuum and the sour air, Walt thought he heard something laughing. When Walt finally got to the white door to the garage with the silver handle, he had the hardest time opening it. His hands were almost all bone except for a few patches of tissue on his palms and knuckles. Without the texture of skin, the knob was slick and difficult. He mumbled to himself and banged his head into the doorframe as he struggled. The rough wood repaid him by keeping a stamp-sized piece of flesh from his forehead when he pulled it away. Why was he given the gift to come back with such little ability to do even the most basic things? Walter couldn't remember what it was like when he was dead. There was just a darkness, then a blinding square of light inside his mind. It was a prairie out west somewhere. It was so yellow, like gold had been melted and then planted there among the hills. At the base of the vision was a beautiful river, reflecting the sky like some sort of postcard you would find in a travel lodge. As his mind followed the trail of water between the glowing banks, his vision settled on a large cobblestone bridge curled over the flowing currents. Something moved beneath it, but his mind could not process its form. It looked like the shadows had some sort of a structure that was purposefully muddled. A clap of thunder hit the sky above. Green clouds stirred in a violent swirl. A shape formed above the man in the center of this static wild maelstrom. It was large, clouded, with a figure like a person, only no real features except for something glittering where its mouth should be. There was some sort of familiar whiteness there, smiling down at him on the grass. Then the sky filled with silver threads in every direction around the turbulent void. There was some sort of high-pitched whining sound everywhere, like the sound a kettle makes when the water inside it has come to a boil. Then, he'd been awake in the basement guest bedroom, which had never been used. Walt couldn't dwell too much on his origin. There was housework to be done here, and even though Marjorie had a small conniption fit over the messiness of his decomposition, she probably wasn't keeping things clean to his standards, especially out on the lawn. The moment he staggered into the garage, he smiled. His green John Deere riding lawnmower sat untouched. He opened the door with the click of a button next to the light switch. It arched up, letting in the summer sun through its yawning opening. He would have smiled if he had had lips. He'd missed daylight. The machine started right up. It was like no time had passed between when Walt had died and awoken. Normally, Walter wouldn't start it in the garage and drive it so quickly out to the lawn, but he was feeling more alive than usual, so he did. As he pushed the handle into gear, which took much longer because his limbs were less than compliant, he noticed something strange. The mower didn't lurch forward at all. The tires screeched and the engine throttled, but the vehicle would not move forward. It was like something was tied to it. It was as if it were chained in place. Then, while thinking about the strangeness of this situation, Walter rocketed forward in a squeal. The sudden haste sent him into the garage door frame, shattering his shoulder and throwing his left arm onto the ground in a cracking flourish. It didn't matter. Walter wanted to mow the lawn. Marjorie heard the lawnmower grumbling between brakes and vacuuming when she'd switch outlets. Typical. Back from the dead, and all he cared about was correcting her mistakes. Cleaning was going extremely well, other than the fact that she'd kept tripping over her own feet. 3 times in the hallway, twice in the bedroom, and once in the kitchen, she'd fallen. It had left bruises growing on her knees and purple blobs. She tried to wipe them away with some bleach, but they didn't go anywhere. Maybe if she sprayed Walter, he'd just dissolve and she could simply scrub him away, back to oblivion. Walter decided to focus mostly on the backyard after just a few minutes up front. He'd caused a few uncomfortable interactions with some passers-by as he worked. A few joggers strode calmly by and then eventually sprinted away, screaming. A biker crashed into a curb, sending the rider flying over the handlebars into a fire hydrant with an ominous crack of his leg. Despite the severity of his potential injury, he was on his feet and riding away within seconds. A few cars slowed down as they noticed him, then throttled away, observing no speed limit whatsoever. 3 black sedans hastily followed this cluster of onlookers. Then the road was quiet, except for a ridiculously packed line of cackling crows overcrowding a power line just across the street. They would not stop staring at him. It was much quieter in the backyard. Just a tall brown privacy fence with a long overgrown square of jade-heavy grass soaking up the morning sunlight. The height of the spiked wooden planks stopped anyone from watching his skeletal skin-hanging form. The mechanical droll of the lawnmower wiped out his inner thoughts, along with the constant buzzing of flies around his decomposed body. The sting of freshly cut grass soaked his senses. The breeze tickled what little nerve endings he had left in his body. Sadly, in his strip of lawn, there were a few sick crabapple trees that had shed a variety of branches which kept on cracking and biting as the spinning blade tore them up like a man-made hurricane. He hated that crunching sound they made every time the lawnmower hit them. Walter promptly stopped the machine and slowly started to collect the sticks. He formed a pile of them over a stretch of dead grass he didn't bother cutting. He just burned them quickly with some gasoline, which was sitting in its usual spot in the garage next to a red lighter. He used to do this all the time, and it was never a problem. It took a few minutes for him to click the lighter just right. His fingers were like toys or chopsticks. They were so bony and awkward they often got caught on themselves. And once he did, the sticks burst up in a small pyramid of bubbling fire. Smoke curled up to the sky in a diagonal trail. Walter smiled. He could still do some things right. He went to take a drink from the garden hose, but figured it would be too risky to put it near his face. He put his thumb over the end of the hose to create a drinking fountain amount of pressure, which immediately blew his thumb off and sent it somewhere into the tall grass. As he set the long snake of plastic down against the house, he noticed a peculiar feeling. His body sort of started to walk by itself towards the fire. Something was pulling on him. It was attached to all parts of his body. His remaining arm, legs, knees, and even chin seemed like there was something invisible pulling at them. Before he could move or fight what was happening, something tugged him up in the air like some sort of a flimsy puppet and dropped him thrashing into the fire with a sizzle. The flames loved his old flesh. They ate him up in seconds. He tried to crawl out of them, but the phantom strands kept him tied over it. He tried to scream, wave his arms for help, and move anything really, but it didn't matter. The fire wanted him, and it would not be denied. Before he vanished from this earth for the second time, Walt reflected that for such a small fire it was devouring him very efficiently. Before his skull's sunken eyes were filled with tongues of crackling orange and yellow, he could see some sort of shadow standing next to the blaze. It was large, human-like, but clearly not a person. Its mouth was large, obscene, with big round teeth smiled into two ominous rows. It was hunched over the fire, blowing into it without moving its grin. There was a horrid, vacuous sound, like some abyss had the drain plug pulled out of it. It was the last thing Walt's senses observed until he passed into smoldering nothingness. Marjorie hadn't noticed what happened to Walt until she took the trash out. She'd gone through multiple rolls of paper towels and the trash was packed with them. When she walked into the yard by the cans just inside the garage, she noticed the lawnmower was gone. She poked her head out of the back door to look at the backyard. She smiled with what she saw. It was a burnt and charred pile of bones just beyond the lawnmower, which looked solemn, like it had just witnessed some sort of a crime it didn't want to mention. Marjorie turned to it like it was a person. "Is he gone again? Is he gone for good?" she said with a laugh and a smile. She breathed a heavy sigh of relief and straightened out her sweatpants and sweatshirt. It would be time for a bath soon. She didn't have to worry about the backyard until tomorrow. Nobody could see past Walt's ridiculous fence. When he was alive the first time, privacy was a weapon he used to control her. Now every cloud in the afternoon sky could see his bones sizzled into non-existence. Marjorie closed the garage and wandered back inside. She cleaned the rest of the upstairs. By about 8 p.m. it was free of Walt's echoes of decay. She'd clean his bedroom downstairs tomorrow, then his bones in the yard. She changed out of her clothes into her gray bathrobe and started to draw herself a bath. She decided to add some Epsom salt to it. Her son's wife had sent her a whole basket full of products like this for her birthday. This seemed like the perfect opportunity to use them. Before stepping into the water, she made way to the linen closet to grab the salt. An unusual sound bit the silence of her home. It was like the sound of a cable being pulled taut. It was metal and resonated sharply, like she was inside some sort of instrument. She paused. The walls were relatively quiet. The air smelled like moisture and the bath rumbled behind the bathroom door. Cautiously, she headed that direction when her ankle struck something and she tripped again. A coldness opened her skin this time. Whatever it was had made her bleed. She felt like her circulatory system was completely exposed to the house. "Ow! What now, damn it?" she said. She rolled onto her butt and pulled the robe away from her leg. Around her gray, whitish ankle skin was a thin ring of metal, like she'd stepped into some sort of trap. What is this?" she said, panicked. As if knowing she was scared, blood wicked down along the edges of the wire. The material caught it deftly, without letting a drop hit the ground. It was like a spider web that refused any raindrop to be earthbound. The blood slowly traveled along the line that was tied to her. As it slid, Marjorie could see there was a long strand attached to her. It hung suspended through the hallway, past the kitchen, and into the living room, where it vanished into the darkness of the top edge of the fireplace opening. Before Marjorie could even think about what she was seeing, her arms pulled away toward the walls. 2 more strings appeared on her wrists. They dug into her flesh, bringing more blood in the direction of the chimney. The air smelled like bleach and sweat. There was an odd song playing somewhere, but Marjorie couldn't hear it completely over her own screams. They were primal, wild, from some deep instinctual core she didn't even know she had. Then they stopped abruptly as a wire appeared around her throat. She was pulled down the hallway like a netted fish. She tried to thrash and bend away from the abominable gravity, dragging her toward the fireplace, but it didn't work. Worse yet, her robe had fallen off, and whatever was doing this was dealing with her completely naked form. She'd feel embarrassed if she weren't simply trying to survive. Marjorie clawed along walls, tearing down photos, grasping at doors, reaching for anything she could try and grip along the way. Her body was mostly on its side throughout the process. The invisible force was struggling as much as she was, it seemed. After a few minutes of fighting, her body started to grow weak, and she was pulled into the living room just in front of the fireplace. Then, the wrenching of the hidden metal lines ceased, and Marjorie was able to look around at the room. There were wires everywhere, dozens of them, running along every object in the house. They all led into the fireplace at her feet, which no longer consisted of a stone square with firewood, but of a curled row of giant white teeth. They were round, clean, and smiling. Right before they opened to gnash upon Marjorie's skin, a knock at the front door broke the feeding. Marjorie could only scream one word as her body fought the shock and horror of what was happening. "Help!" A loud, pulpy thwack announced the heavy stack of folders as the agent dropped them on his commanding officer's desk. "What the hell is this?" the commander frowned. "Police reports. We have a problem." The commander didn't care too much for the rather dramatic way her agent chose to raise the matter. But his work was usually solid, and she trusted that he had a point. It was the commander's business to make order from chaos, but in another sense, her task was to balance the two. One might guess as much just by glancing around her office. The modest room looked as though it was the birthplace of order and chaos themselves. Her wide, plain desk was tidy in the center, while the edges teemed with piles of documents, books, packages of all shapes, and no small assortment of computer disks, tapes, microfilm cartridges, and conspicuously old volumes. On the wall was a large corkboard, neatly divided into quadrants but with clumps of photographs, notes, and scraps stuck up seemingly at random. Police reports were nothing new to the commander, but a collection this size was a curiosity. That curiosity grew as she began making quick work of reading through the stack. Public indecency. A streaker was spotted running across multiple trails in Hidden Oaks Park. No suspects, no evidence collected beyond the statements of 2 witnesses. Petty theft. An odd account, too. On July 15, 1999, at approximately 17:30, an unidentified person approached the victims, both children, unseen, and took their kick scooters by force. The suspect dropped 2 pine cones each in front of the children and spoke to them briefly. From Timothy's statement, "She said, 'Take these for a trade. She will not harm you.' And then she stood up on both our scooters and coasted into the woods." From Nathan's statement, "No, it was a man. He said, 'Take these pine cones or else I will hurt you.' And he couldn't coast into the woods. It's uphill. He must have ran." The suspect took both scooters into a wooded area of Hidden Oaks Park. Both witnesses ran in pursuit but could not find the suspect or their scooters again. Nathan threw and lost one of the pine cones. No fingerprints could be obtained from the pine cones. Many partial footprints were found near the trail, but neither witness was able to remember the type of shoes or boots the suspect wore. Drunk and disorderly. A crazy lady had been meowing and purring and grabbing at the bark of trees. When the witness asked what she was doing, she paused, laughed, then suddenly acted very startled and stumbled away, again into Hidden Oaks. So the park had seen a rise in people behaving oddly. At this point in the cycle, nobody in the agency could expect differently, but the commander was nothing if not patient, and at this moment could honestly use a bit of light reading. Another public indecency. A woman was seen wading and bathing in a muddy pond. Destruction of property. A wrecked utility box had been found and reported. Further investigation revealed that the box was not city equipment, nor any known contracted utility. The police had the device in evidence but could not determine its function. Now that was interesting. The attached photos confirmed the commander's suspicions. The utility box in question was one of the agency's own devices. She looked up at the agent and held up a photo of the box's markings. "Any chance of recovering this?" she asked. It was a small loss, but one the agency could do without. "My partner's bringing it to the lab as we speak. The agent hesitated. His usual manner would have him singing praises or insults or otherwise being mildly inappropriate about his new partner. But in the presence of his commander, he'd learned a certain amount of restraint and directness would serve better. "He did very well. He was exactly who we needed in this case." The commander was already through the next 4 reports. Handling multiple conversations or ingesting new information in bulk came as naturally to her as they didn't to the agent. Different skills, he told himself, but couldn't help admiring a mind so much more dexterous than his own. An illegal deer stand. The photos revealed it to be more Robinson Crusoe looking than usual, but nothing noteworthy in the world of deer stands. A set of binoculars reported missing, probably stolen. Some of these were not even crimes, or were very minor ones. A worker from Gopher State One Call filed a complaint about a large number of pin flags, just like their own, showing up all over the park. A noise complaint. On August 1st, 1999, at approximately 0200, an unknown suspect was heard using a megaphone somewhere within the park intermittently for about an hour. From witness statements, the person was possibly mumbling or speaking gibberish, but 3 accounts claimed to have clearly heard them gargling. Another theft. A worker from the electric company set down a spindle of heavy copper wire, returned to his truck just a few yards away to answer his CB radio, and less than a minute later, he returned and the wire was gone. The commander's mind tried to make a connection between this utility worker, the call before you dig flags, and the agency's faux utility box, but none was forthcoming. The reports were more chaos than order, little more than a random sampling of events that were a bit strange, minor league criminal, or both. Another public indecency, and possible littering and/or disorderly conduct. Witnesses were walking by some shrubs or bushes near one of the park trails when an arm grabbed out from inside it and grabbed Sarah's legs. The suspect began whispering, babbling about missing papers. Eventually, the suspect let go of Sarah's leg and emerged from the brush, holding out a bunch of dirty paper. From Sarah's statement. When they jumped out, they kept whispering about their papers and waving them at us. How they were so important or something. It was hard to hear and I didn't get a good look at them. Said something about how we were all blind. Then they threw the dirty paper at our faces. They ran off into the woods after that. I really couldn't see or remember what they looked like, but I don't think they had any clothes on. From Zach's statement. We were just walking, and Sarah shouted in surprise when her ankle was grabbed. I just caught a glimpse of the arm. It seemed really dirty. I can't even say what color the person was. I thought I heard something behind us, and by the time I turned back to the crazy whispering person, like Sarah said, they had run off. It all happened really fast. Arson. The fire chief wrote part of this report. We had several calls about thick black smoke from within the park. It looked way too big for a barbecue or even a big campfire. We were ready to go in and find half the park burned down. But we never found the fire, or even any ashes. I never saw anything like it. The minute we got to the scene, we could see the smoke, but no flames. Several witnesses do report having seen fire and not just smoke, but we have no pictures or video to prove it, and no burned trees or ashes either. 2 reports of makeshift snares and traps. Breaking and entering. At the library, but nothing stolen. So much for the park itself even being a common thread through these reports. The only real pattern of note was the number of streakers, but perhaps during this cycle some kind of relic pertaining to skin shedding or unveiling had been recovered somehow. I never took you for a prude, Agent, the commander said. That was not the first thing the agent expected to hear upon the commander finishing her reading. His face showed as much. So much for her attempt at humor. This sort of ribbing should have been right up his alley, or so she thought. I'm afraid you're going to have to spell out for me why this is a problem. It's hardly news that the park is full of people acting strange lately. Person, the agent corrected. The commander's eyes narrowed. These are all about one person, she said. It wasn't a question, or even a request for confirmation. She was putting the pieces together just as the agent spoke again. Our cartographer. Her thoughts and his words. She glanced at her board and fixed her gaze at the small note with only the word cartographer scribbled on it. This note was stuck right where it had been for weeks, dead center, not belonging to any of the quadrants. The cartographer. People were taking notice, and in numbers. Then you're right, she granted. We have a decision to make, and soon. She turned the situation over in her head, quickly glancing back to the pile of reports. The words hadn't changed, but they had new meaning. The cartographer had evaded their cataloging for too long. Most players were obviously on one side or the other, clearly part of the machinations underway or clearly not. Interference with the events in motion was to be avoided at all costs. But did that mean the cartographer was to be ignored, protected, or removed? Compelling arguments all around could have, and indeed had, been made in that very office. The commander looked across her desk at the agent. What's your take? He did not need the space of a deep breath to organize his opinion, but took one anyway. The commander preferred accurate ideas to quick ones. My gut says this piece is not ours to move. The commander nodded. She didn't yet allow herself to agree or disagree, but his was a key opinion to weigh. Let's bring in your partner and every agent who's observed the cartographer. Her eyes dropped to the reports again, and she considered asking the reporting officers as well, but quickly thought better of it. They had what they needed from the police. That is, unless. She flipped through and swiftly found the report she wanted. This one, about the Whisperer, she began. It lists the thrown paper under evidence collected. I had a feeling you'd ask about that, the agent cut in. He was being a bit smug again, but if this was going the way the commander hoped, he'd earned a bit of self-congratulation. From his case, he produced another collection of papers and plopped them onto the desk between them. Only this was no tidy, tabulated stack of well-structured information. This was a filthy, inscrutable blob of awkwardly folded and interconnected paper, encased in a police evidence bag. We've actually got it, the commander smiled. The rest of the cartographer's map.
Hey, are you awake? You're here!
I'm here. Hey, Ellie.
Ugh, Hot Pockets. Just like Dad, huh? Thought you didn't eat that junk anymore, Mr. California.
I didn't exactly mean to... Alright, come on. Let go, I'm gross. I was in the car all night.
You, come on. That doesn't matter.
It does, though. I drove to the Sierras, but got here somehow. And there was... well, maybe it doesn't matter.
Did you sleep in your car?
Yeah, but only for an hour or two.
Well, that makes it better.
What about you?
What about me?
You look... No, you look good. I just mean... You look tired, too.
Thanks.
Wait, what are you doing here?
Well, somebody told me I had to deal with this on my own. So I came to see if he has a will or...
Gotcha. Hey, you're not on your own after all. That's the... I guess I'll let you decide if it's good news.
All right. Come on, then.
Does Dad have a cat? Oh, weird.
Oh, is that big blind one here again?
He wouldn't let me have a cat.
Now, don't start with that already. Besides, it's not his. It's the neighborhood cat. I've seen it around a couple times. Hey, 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 hey.
What? What?
I'm glad you're here. And I wasn't going to come to the house this morning. But then I just felt like I should. Part of me knew you'd...
Don't you start with that, deal?
No.
Where are you going?
I don't have a key to the front door. We'll have to go in through the garage.
Wow. I was expecting this thing to be rusted out. Still a beauty. I guess he does care about some things.
Please don't.
No, I just mean, I'm not trying to say he loves this car more than us. Just out in LA, it would be easy to keep it in this kind of shape. Here, though, through Minnesota winters, it would take some doing. I can respect that.
Men and their cars. Family car, though. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. Ah, see, this is what I was expecting.
I know. He's kind of messy.
This place is a sty. There's junk everywhere. We're down to about one path through each room. How long has he been living like this?
I don't remember. And look.
Hot Pockets. Yes, I see them. I had a really messed up night, okay? It was either that or gas station hot dogs. I went with the devil I know. What's that look?
I'm just proud of myself. Watch your head.
Jesus. Thanks. Proud of what?
Proud I didn't point out the Hot Pockets were the same flavor.
Yeah. What the? There's like 400 lighters in here. They're all of those fancy Zippo ones, and none of them light.
Well, don't look at me. You said it yourself. He's crazy.
Ah, okay, I was wrong. At least one of them lights. Is it time to torch this place yet?
Stop it. Put that away.
I just don't remember him being such a slob.
He wasn't, okay? These piles started when you left. And I'm not going to pretend to know whether he misses you or if he used to keep things together so that you think better of him. I don't know the reason. Or if there's even a reason. I just know that since you left, he hasn't been the same.
Well, good.
Sure. Good. You know, at some point, you're going to have to see him and talk to him.
I thought the whole point of this was we might not get to... Sorry. I didn't come here to talk to him. I didn't actually come here at all.
Can you get out of the way? I can't get by.
Fine.
I think there were papers on the table.
And which landfill might that be under?
I suppose you never leave a mess around your house.
My apartment? No, I really don't. What is that?
You're going to have to be more specific.
On the wall.
The fish? I don't know. What's funny?
We're searching through all this crap and... Well, I guess I don't know either, but to me that looks like a literal red herring.
Okay.
You know, a red herring. Misdirection.
Ah, right. I don't imagine there's a fancy acting word for picking up and looking behind or looking under things. Careful of the cords.
Sorry. I'm not exactly experienced in rummaging through Dad's crap, which, yeah, is probably more or less your point.
Sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you.
It's okay. And all this? And the old man who piled it here? This can't be my life.
I know. Can I sneak by again?
We were already through there. Don't you think that if he had whatever important files, they'd be in his study?
Wait.
What the hell? Was this you? Did you clean this up for him?
No. He kept it like this. It's like you said. He does care about some things.
Not that there isn't still trash laying out.
It isn't trash. You know this is his...
Yeah, I know. The ritual. The relics. It's enabling his psychosis. It's trash whether it's dirty or not. Ah, and there it is. A reeking journal of family insanity.
There's a picture back there I was going to ask you about.
This one?
The little one on... Yeah, that one.
Oh, Grandpa in the little church. So at one point it wasn't falling apart.
Do you know who that old guy is? The one with the big cigar?
What has this got to do with anything?
I don't know. Nothing? I was just wondering who he is, or was, I suppose. Did Dad ever tell you?
I think so. I don't remember his name, but he and Grandpa were friends, going way back. He donated the land the church got built on, I want to say. What is it?
Nothing. There was something familiar about him. Like something from one of my dreams, or... sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. Look around us. We're surrounded by exactly the kind of crazy that gives us weird dreams about the ground swallowing us up, or someone's eyes getting pulled out, or a pudgy cigar guy.
Have you? Forget it.
Have I been dreaming too? Yeah, it's okay. I'm sorry I blew up about all this yesterday. Was it yesterday? When was that even? Anyway, yeah, I've had some doozies. Not about Grandpa or this guy, but typical super fun, messed up, gross shit.
Whoa, what is that? How did you do that?
Oh, these puzzle boxes? Dad, he used to give them to me. Not really sure why or what the deal was with them, but I got pretty quick with them.
I'll say.
Whenever you see a split, well, look at you. Fast learner.
Oh, gross. So that's what you meant about misshapen bones?
Oh, yeah. Really great prizes in those things, huh? Nope. None of the places where important documents might live have any documents in them. Just more puzzle boxes and stuff that's somehow both sharp and rusty. Nightmare fuel. Ah!
What?
Jesus, that cat scared the shit out of me. It's staring right in the window. Are you sure it's blind? I guess it seems blind.
Yeah, it creeped me out a bit at first, too. It's kind of cute, though.
Right. Any luck in the cabinets?
Nope. Just leaves the wardrobe, I guess. I don't remember that.
I do. The tall case, you mean, right?
Yeah.
There was this one time Dad got real serious. He brought me in here and sat me down like he was going to give me the talk or something. Only I was younger than, well, it doesn't matter. He had this case out. A couple other things, too. He was nervous. Kind of beat around the bush for a while. And then, I don't remember. Either I said something that made him mad or, I don't know. But he didn't end up showing or telling me about whatever it was.
Did he hit you?
We don't need to get into that.
If you say so.
Well, I'm gonna find out now.
Wait!
Huh.
A lantern? What is it?
This I have had dreams about. I was having a rough time when I first went out to LA. Couldn't tell what was real. When I started therapy, we talked about dreams I was having, and a lot of them at first were about a lantern. One with weird crap etched all over it that I couldn't read.
They say you can't read in dreams.
Can you read this?
What? No. How do you even know it's something that could be read?
Where's that lighter?
Come on. Don't. Let's put this away. Let's get out of here. I can come and look for those papers another time.
Oh no, you're the one who's open to all this. This stuff's important, right? Hell, maybe it's a magic lantern. Maybe a genie will pop out and answer all our questions. Or maybe it'll show the way back to Dad's will and reveal an invisible ink that surprise he... What do you look... Whoa, what the hell is that?
I think it's the cat. Move the light.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Are you seeing a very, very dead cat when you aim? Ah!
Its mouth!
Oh shit!
What's happening behind it? What the hell is going on?
I think the lantern is showing us... What happened?
I guess there wasn't much wick left. Shit. Where'd the cat go?
I don't know. I think it ran off. There! Walking away like everything's normal?
All right. You win. We need to talk to Dad. What? What is it now?
He's awake.
The Hidden Oaks podcast is a collaboration between Patrick W. Marsh, Robert Dawn, and Owen Swerkstrom. The story Marionette was written by Patrick W. Marsh. Reports by Owen Swerkstrom. Awake by Owen Swerkstrom and Robert Dawn. The voice of Hidden Oaks and Eddie performed by Robert Dawn. The voice of Ellie performed by Robin Sand. Original music composed and performed by David Schwartz. Find more of his works at dtschwartz.com. Produced by Robert Dawn, Owen Swerkstrom, and Patrick W. Marsh. You can find out more online by visiting us at hiddenoakspodcast.com or by finding us on Twitter at Hidden Oaks Pod, as well as Facebook and Instagram at Hidden Oaks Podcast. Hidden Oaks is an Ironfield independent production. Thank you for listening, and until next time.